Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I am Lindsay Whiteley. I am the founder of Camp Nexus. Camp Nexus is an online marketplace that connects parents with kids camps, simplifies the entire process. You can search, research, communicate, organize, book camps. So we all know how much of a disaster that can be. So head on over to Camp Nexus if you want to learn more. And what we're going to do today, right now, is actually introduce our panel. So, Mike, if you want to start, go right ahead.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah, my name is Michael Oxton. I'm one of the co-founders of Night Shift Brewing out of Boston. Started it almost 14 years ago. And, we started with like bootstrap capital. It was like friends and family pitching in to help us try something crazy. I think they all thought it was a nice donation that was going to go nowhere. But we, just did everything we could to grow it, and went from a little startup in a tiny little warehouse, really sketchy warehouse in Everett, and grew it into what became one of the largest independent breweries in New England. So it's been an awesome journey. And then actually just earlier this year, we sold the company, exited. It's now owned by Jack Sabby, the brand that you guys would know. So they're an awesome group of people, and we put it in their hands, and I'm excited to watch it grow from there. But thrilled to be here. So we'll take it from there.
And if you guys are all true Bostonians, which a majority of people on this call are, we all know how good Night Shift is. We've all had maybe one or two of those, right? So we are super excited to learn from you and your journey with that specific industry.
Awesome.
Yeah, Sophia.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Startup Boston and City of Boston. I'm very happy to be here. I'm Sophia Cambanis, the Executive Director of Massachusetts Innovation Network. We are a nonprofit organization working with startups, primarily post-incubated ones and many times post-accelerated ones, to help them navigate the valley of death of startups. We spent the better part of the year with just one cohort, and we tailor make every year's program to needs and objectives each one of these founders put down for us to review, so that at the end of the program, which is end of November, every single one of them has actionable steps to take. And although they graduate in November, we really do not stop holding their hands until they tell us, I'm good to go now. So thanks for having me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And all of the information that you're going to be telling us today, like it's such a process, right? So being able to understand what you can do and the help that you can receive is going to be very, very important and great takeaways today. Karen, all the way from Dubai.
Yes, I'm visiting and I will be back home in Boston shortly. Thank you for having me here. My name is Kiran Panjwani. I'm one of the founders of a company called Founderway. I have a background in running accelerators and incubators for the last 12 years, and Founderway is truly a testament of how I saw founders grow and fail at the same time, because it's a journey. We wanted to see how we can help founders grow faster and fail faster and be able to do what they want to do at the speed that they would like to accomplish and not have to wait for others. We built Founderway as an edtech company initially to help founders get educated on what they want to do, what they want to build, understand their customers better. We're primarily built on the philosophy of design thinking and customer-centric design. And we took that and we grew it into an agentic AI company this October, and since then have grown tremendously and worked with hundreds of founders since then. So we help founders go from idea to next step. And if they're already in the market, we have built agents around every step that the founder needs, with advisors, with 80 colleges to help founders understand what steps they need to take to grow. Thank you so much for having me. I'm not a local Bostonian. I'm a Pakistani Canadian that moved to Boston to this amazing network and family, and I'm excited to share my experience.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, you guys. Being a founder in Boston is unbelievable, right? Like you are in such a good hub to start a company. There's so many resources, there's so many events, there's so many things to do. But at the same time, that can be really overwhelming. So I feel like this panel having a mixed collaboration of resources and experience is going to help the audience really kind of navigate their way and be able to understand more about the options that Boston has for first-time founders. Me, myself, I mean, it's confusing, it's overwhelming, and being able to understand, the different events to go to or not to go to, really helps navigate that first time founder feel and step and anxiety. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through a bunch of questions in terms of, very specific questions about specific events, but also people's journeys. We like to hear people's journeys. And so what I want to do is ask this amazing panel a whole bunch of questions, but also at the same time, I want to hear from the audience. So if the audience has any questions, like Stephanie had mentioned, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will get to them at the end. And so here we go. Everybody ready? Awesome. All right, let's start. So, Kieran and Sophia, how did you first start building your network in Boston startup scene? Was there ever a moment or an event or a connection that changed everything for you?
So I was living in Canada and in Toronto and studying in Boston and going back and forth. And the first event that I ever attended in Boston was Steph's Startup Weekend. In fact, I started with volunteering. I'd never been to an event, but I volunteered at her event. And I think giving first is one of the best ways to receive more and get to know with boots on the ground how things work, get to know people. People are so welcoming and giving in many ways when they see you in this position where you're helping others as well when you're trying to figure things out. So Steph was one of the first people that I met in the Boston ecosystem and then moved a year later permanently to Boston just before COVID hit. So it was a strange time for me to come into Boston, but at the same time, CIC was one of my first places that I would go regularly to Venture Cafe on their online event portal. And that's where I built a lot of, I built practice for networking and met a lot of people. So that was the start of my Boston event scene. I do think that the specialized events, as I understood which niche I wanted to focus on and what are the types of people I wanted to meet, I moved more from generalized events into more focused events where my needs were being fulfilled as a founder. So
I think that's really important to also point out as well, is that if, you're going to a lot of the generalized events, starting to understand kind of what your niche is and your specifics of what you're looking for is a really big step to be able to understand where you should go from there. So that's a really good point to bring up. Sophia.
If I may add to it, I was not lucky enough to know Stephanie and Startup Boston at the time. I was coming from the corporate world and I had a mentee to work with. And it was really her story that got me into the ecosystem. So she had lost her baby to cancer, and at the same time she was diagnosed with cancer. And she was on the road to change pediatric and adult after hospital care for people who have PICC lines. And just seeing her and her passion to make a difference took me on a road trip with her and I started realizing how big the ecosystem is, who were the players for what she wanted to do, I started meeting people. And I have to say, it did take me some time. It's a big ecosystem. It's very dense, but very welcoming. So I took a few months to start understanding and mapping the different players. And from then on, I started putting what my objectives were, that, and from then on, pivot to events and meetings that were more geared towards what I wanted to do, which was to continue the program we now offer, which has been in the market for 39 years. But everybody was very welcome, and I want to emphasize that for all new founders. It's just understanding who they are and how they can help one another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you kind of touched upon something that's really important, and Kieran, you also did as well. Would you add any, how do you decide on where to show up, right? So like you said that there's a lot going on, and we kind of touched upon the whole niche topic.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you would suggest to this audience of where to show up? Because there are so many events going on.
Right. Yes.
Anything else that you would say?
I would say, think about what your objectives are. And CIC, I believe in Cambridge, every Thursday, 4:30 to 6:30, they have a gathering. Founders, investors, academia, research go there. So you can just go and start meeting people. But there are events for specific industries, for specific reasons. For example, Startup Boston has a great calendar of events.
Mm-hmm.
Have a look, and Bostino, the Boston Business Journal Innovation online paper, has some upcoming events. So have a look. It's great to meet people in the beginning, but at the end, it really has to do with what you are trying to accomplish. If you're a life scientist, if you're in biotech, there's no reason necessarily for you to be going to events for, say, clean tech or robotics. So start by understanding who does what, and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think if I were to lay out like how I got into the ecosystem, I obviously like felt overwhelmed with the number of events. I went to the easy events. CIC Venture Cafe is an easy event. You go, you meet people, you kind of understand the lay of the land. And you start working through things. People will start, connecting with you. You need to stay in touch with those people. And then I started going into more, specific events that were more specific towards, I was looking to incorporate, I was looking for a banking partner. I started reaching out to people who were the right people and at those events. And, then you get invited to some of the private events that you don't see publicly advertised. And that's where I think I found a lot of value as well, is going to events that were not publicly listed. There's smaller events, there's dinners that happen. So you kind of grow into the ecosystem. But I always love going back to the general events to meet others and to give back into the community as well.
Yeah, again, it's very overwhelming, and being able to kind of get this type of information and specific information is going to definitely be very helpful. And I'm actually very interested to ask Mike this question, because I mean, let's be honest, Boston is a big tech hub, right? There's a lot of different tech companies. There's a lot of AI going on. He's not in that. So for anybody that isn't specifically in that world, maybe you're in retail, maybe, whatever it may be, how do you navigate Boston as a startup hub?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you have to be open to sort of like, diversifying where you're looking. But I mean, a lot of the stuff that I would look at is like, food and beverage expos. There's a lot of food events around, and there's a lot of events that are happening where like a specific company or a specific group is hosting it, but then you can meet people from sort of all walks of life at those. So, I mean, I don't have any, like, I wouldn't say anything very specific, but I would say like it's useful to sort of think about events out there. It's almost the opposite advice, which is like I agree in being targeted in what you're going after, but at the same time, I think you also have to be open to like events that wouldn't typically fall into your niche, but having a very specific goal of what you want out of them, but being open to the kinds of people you'll meet. For me, it was a lot of like, food and beverage events, and a lot of events that are more geared towards something more social and less about like a specific topic. But then, you meet like banking partners. For us, it was a lot of like, relationships within the restaurant industry. Someone knows someone, and that connection is often like the most valuable thing you can find.
Yeah. Do you ever find that going to a very targeted event is either helpful or not?
Oh, I think it's super helpful. I mean, I 100% agree with that. Um, as long as it's sort of like you have a goal going into it of like what you want out of it, yeah.
So then what are some of the most unexpected or underrated places in Boston to meet great people? For anybody, really. Any three of you. Anyone?
Funnily enough, I had met people that are in the ecosystem at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, which is
Oh, nice.
the
I love
least,
that.
place that somebody would expect. But I was holding a couple of folders. I was going to a meeting and I just stopped for a breather. And there we started a conversation about startups and how the ecosystem is. It was a great connection, but certainly not something I had intended to do. For me, I think the Venture Cafe in Cambridge was where I met so many people in such a short time that I knew if I go every Thursday, I'm going to meet more and more and more people.
I mean, you bring up a great point where it's like you don't stop working ever, right? Like you meet them at Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, or you keep on going to Venture Cafe. It's like you're always putting yourself in a position where you could potentially meet an investor or a co-founder or whatever. So be always, keeping yourself on your toes, right?
I was talking to an investor yesterday, and he said, I want you to keep on emphasizing to your startups, you never know who you will meet at any point in your day or night. And I think it's very true. I would like to share that.
I absolutely agree with you, especially in Boston. You never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to have your next conversation with. But with that said, I would say always be your authentic self, right? So when you're meeting somebody, you don't want to play off as a different person, because who honestly knows, this could be your next co-founder or your next investor. So always kind of making sure that you're your authentic self and putting that out to the world is going to get you places, right? So speaking of places, Kieran, do you have anything else to add to that?
I just have like a founder experience of building a company from inside my home for 2 years. I forgot to go out almost, where I feel like we're so cooped up and like we have so much work to do. Whether it's a virtual event or an in-person event, putting yourself out there and putting your LinkedIn on a chat like this, like you never know who you're going to meet again, like how Sophia said. I think that was so important for me to remember that I need to put myself out there, to gain what I want to gain from the community and give back to the community. And founders don't think of that enough, is to prioritize going to events and networking.
So then speaking of that as well, walking into a room of a bunch of people can be super overwhelming and super awkward, right? Like I can be awkward. Everybody can be awkward. How do you approach these moments? What can you say? What can you do? I always think, hey, I'm here for a reason, right? I'm here for a goal, to everybody's point. I'm not going to just sit here and, twiddle my thumbs. I need to make connections. Do you guys have any go-to tips for making these genuine connections, or about feeling nervous, which, by the way, everybody, is 100% normal? Does anybody have any tips for our audience?
I mean, I think I typically try to go in with a list of questions that I'm just willing to ask anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other thing you have to do is just assume that everyone kind of feels like you do, right? Like to some extent. And so, and honestly, just go up to people and start asking questions. And
Mm-hmm.
the average person is so interested in telling you about their story. So I think coming with genuine curiosity does 90% of it. And at some point, you get to talk about what you're doing, and maybe you find something of mutual value, maybe not. But I think showing up with curiosity and looking to learn gets most of the work done, in terms of nerves out of the way and conversation starters. Just ask questions.
Yeah, one thing too, just think everybody's in the same boat, right? Everybody's nervous. Everybody, has a goal of why they're there. And I always think it's really helpful when I think about that, when I'm like, everybody feels the way I do. Sophia, Kieran, do you guys have anything that you have go-to tips for any of this?
I have to say I'm extremely shy with new people, and networking, even now after so many years, is a struggle for me. So my approach was to just go honestly in a room where I didn't know anybody and say, "Hi, I'm Sophia. I'm new at this, and I was hoping to learn from you what you do, how you operate in the ecosystem, and just join a conversation." I think it's fine to have nerves. Most of us do, unless you're a professional in just networking. Nerves are fine, they're accepted. So go with honesty and tell them that you are nervous and you're hoping to meet a couple of people.
Yeah. And that conversation could change the trajectory of your life. Let's be honest, you could walk up to that right person and ask that right person a question, and that could literally change your entire life. So always think about that. This person I might never meet again, or this person could make my first investment. Who knows, right? But unless you ask that question or have that conversation, you won't know.
Right.
Kieran, do you have any go-to tips?
Yeah, I always try to start with a non-business introduction. I want to understand, what brings them here, in the sense of what did they do this week? If there was something interesting they did, just try to find commonalities. I think that's just a pattern that we look for as humans is, hey, do we have something in common that we can talk about? And then one thing leads to another. That for me calms my nerves down. I absolutely hate it when I start talking to somebody and they're like, pitch me your startup. And I'm in that spot and I'm so nervous. I'm sure this has happened to all of us. We've pitched so many times, but when someone puts you in that spotlight where you've already just done that four other conversations and you're so tired of talking about what you do, but you're curious, but you want someone else to start. I think it's for me, it's always better to start with a non-work thing, and then getting into, so what do you do? How did you get into that industry? I love background stories. Like Mike said, curiosity, and that really helps with relatability. to have that long-term relationship with that person, essentially.
So once you connect with that specific person that you admire or that specific person that you potentially want to work with, what does a good follow-up look like after that event? Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, I can jump in just since I usually, if I'm super interested, I will immediately connect with them on LinkedIn. And if they would give me their email address, I will immediately send them an email with a request for, time that they have in their calendar if the conversation was that engaging. So I have tiers of engagement and priority. At that point, when the business sense kicks in, that's how it works. It has also happened that we have left an event, like I've met people that were like awesome and we're like, oh, let's go grab drinks somewhere else because there's lots to talk about. So it really is like, okay, you made amazing connections, came out with friends that I had no network in Boston when I came here, and now I knock on wood I would like to say a really good network. And there are people that you go out with drinks, there are people you follow up on email immediately, then there's the LinkedIn connection, and then there is the, you put them in your general updates as a founder. I send out general updates once a quarter saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. So I kind of keep them updated on what I'm doing in my company, essentially.
That's such a great idea. Just keeping them updated with what you're working on quarterly is such a good idea, actually. Thanks for bringing that up. Mike?
Yeah. I think everything that was just said, I agree with. So the only thing I'll add, I think, is, people tend to meet a lot of other people at events, and it's useful to sometimes reference the specific topic or conversation you had in your follow-up email, because I like to assume that people will remember me, but at the same time, like, maybe they don't. And so it's useful to sort of just reference, like, hey, it was awesome talking to you about XYZ. It also just shows you were listening, right? So it's kind of like 2 for 1. Like it allows them to recall who you were, the specific conversation, and then also it's like, oh wow, they were listening, and it gives you something to talk about going forward. But otherwise, yeah, I agree with everything that was just said.
And you can't really help but feel that connection, right? So Kieran, when you were saying about how sometimes you'll go out for drinks after, right? Like you can't help but feel a specific way about somebody if, you potentially want a co-founder. Like all of that is so natural. And personally, I love that connection, right? So, so LinkedIn updates. LinkedIn is like the professional way. Updates, obviously just keeping everybody updated with what you're doing quarterly. And is there anything else that you guys would suggest to our audience?
If this person is of interest to you professionally for the future, I always suggest pursue the relationship first, because if you think there is a connection, this is something you want to pursue. So ask for a Zoom call, see if there is interest in both sides, no matter what the relationship is, whether it could be a potential co-founder or an investor down the line. Both sides need to feel that this is a great fit for both of them. How do you pursue that? That's by developing a relationship with them. So ask for a Zoom call, ask for a phone call, talk a bit more, follow up with your unique value proposition, ask questions. If somebody is in an advisor role, pick his mind. But this is all naturally built. You can't expect to walk into a room and say, hey, is there somebody who wants to give me $1 million? All these need to come in a very natural development kind of way.
It's all natural, right? Like it has to feel natural. I really want to push that. Like if it's not feeling natural, it's not meant to be. Especially if you have to think about it this way. If this is going to be an investor, if this is going to be a co-founder, you want it to be easy, right? Like you don't want to have to, in 2 years be regretting this relationship because of something that, you felt the whole time. So I actually really want to stress that it needs to feel natural. So if you were to say, what's one practical thing a new founder could do this week to start building their network in Boston, what would that be? Mike, putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, this is, I think this is like just useful advice generally, but I would say like, one sort of like wonderful piece of advice I was given a while back was see every connection that you make as the opportunity to make two more connections, right? And so like whoever you connect with next, whatever your next like, relationship building is, see that as an opportunity to potentially meet two other people. And I don't mean that in a way where it sort of treats the relationship like you're just using it to get there, but like instead of seeing that as the end goal, always see it as an opportunity to meet some more people. And then on the flip side, be incredibly generous with what you're willing to give. And I think it's like, expect nothing but hope for the best,
Totally.
and be very, very generous in sort of like what you're willing to do in the relationship. And maybe you get nothing out of it for a while and then ultimately it pays you off at some point. But I do think seeing it as an opportunity to always like sort of exponentially branch your network through every person is a great way to just suddenly one connection makes two, makes four, and it just keeps going. Yeah.
I know this sounds crazy. I'm very well aware of this, but like, honestly, I'm one of those people that truly believe in everything happens for a reason. We are all here today because it's for a reason. Everybody on this call is here for a reason. You are all learning from the 3 panelists here so that you can take the right steps and do what you feel is the right steps for you. So everything happens for a reason. Just go for it. Just go for it. And I know we only have just a couple minutes right now, but Kieran and Sophia, Mike just brought up a really awesome point and just something to think about. What is the best piece of advice that you have ever gotten throughout your career in the startup world that you would want everybody to know?
I mean, there's been tons of advice, right?
The number one.
The best one, and this is going to be like very counterintuitive, but somebody told me free advice is worth free advice. And that stuck with me because as a founder, you feel like you end up asking people about everything, but you also need to kind of use your own instinct, your gut, your experience. We almost put ourselves as second when we listen to others for advice, and we forget to use our own gut and instinct. And I learned that. And when someone told me free advice is worth free advice, they were so right about it. Because when I look back, some of the wrong turns that I've taken are my own fault because it was free advice and it was worth what it was worth. So you need to really take a moment as a founder, and as you go to these events, evaluate the right people, learn how to build trust before you actually take that advice and implement it, and make sure you're going in the right direction and you own that direction, not the person who gave you that advice. They have no stake in this unless they're a shareholder in your company. So that was one of the best advice that I've gotten. I just want to bring up one thing. I know people in the chat are sharing their LinkedIns and stuff. I want to say that this is how I met my co-founder at a webinar for a legal talk held by one of the companies here in Boston, and we both had the same idea and what we were working on in chat, and then we ended up building this business together. So
I love that.
this is a great place to meet people.
See, everything happens for a reason. Point proven. Sophia, what's your number one piece of advice to everybody?
Somebody told me every time you hear a no, you're gonna feel like you're falling down. If you fall down 10 times, you should be ready to get up 11. to make it. So there's going to be so many no's trying to stop you. You need to be able to pick up the pieces and keep on going. You really need to believe in what you're doing and just ride the waves. I think that was a very wise advice, because in this market, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and you have to keep on moving forward.
Awesome. It's true. I mean, the amount of times I heard no, but in the end, it actually pushed me to work harder has been, I literally can't even account, but awesome. You guys, this was awesome. This is great. But audience, now it is time to dig into some of your questions. So we have a couple questions in the chat that I would like to call out that the panel will answer. Heidi Lewis Ivy, what advice would you give to someone who is an introvert and finds it hard to network? I think this is a very probably important question, because there's a lot of introverts out there, right? And we touched upon it a little bit about just going head on, but what are very specific pieces of advice that you guys would give?
Being an introvert myself, this is painful. It's really painful if it's not in you to make it. I personally started just trying to get out of my comfort zone. I had to do it a gazillion times. It's still out of my comfort zone. Put an objective. I'm going to be going to 1 event a month, to 2 events a month. I started with 2 because I couldn't stomach more.
Mhm.
My nerves were just shattering me. But I said, I'm going to be going to 2 events. And in the beginning, the outcome was I want to meet 2 to 3 people. And the more you do it, the more you learn how to do it. If you're an introvert, you will always be an introvert, but you're going to practice networking. And I think practice does not make you perfect, but it's going to make you a bit less uncomfortable with it. So just start by putting a small goal and stick to it.
Awesome. Great. Another really good one. Is there a time where it's difficult to keep track of all of your connections? From Trisha Betito, sorry. What are some strategies that help organize these connections?
Happy to chime in here. I think one thing I've done is I actually just have a Google Sheet, and it just keeps track for me of all of the like most valuable conversations I've had over a given time period. And I basically just put in like, and there's other, like, there's more official ways to do this. You can use like a CRM or something, but I just use a Google Sheet, and it's like name, phone number, email, and then just like date, and then like conversation we had. And it's not like that detailed, but at the very least, it allows me to like quickly go to that sheet and be like, who has been, sort of like in my world over the last 6 months? I tab it by about 6 months. And then what have I talked about? And like, it's great for a reference, and it's great for when I just like, I'm like, oh, I need to do something, and I just can't remember who I've been emailing, and then I can go back. And if it's like on that list, it's so easy to sort of like filter and figure out, how to go from there.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great point. Just keeping it all collected in one space, so you can always reference it, is going to be really important.
I think
Awesome.
that's a great one. I might steal that one, Michael. I literally, when I meet you at an event, I will be like, Lindsay, I'll say, hey, on LinkedIn, and I'll say where we met, and it's for you and I both to know where we met. And then I'll use LinkedIn as my follow-up, but I love Michael's idea.
Yeah, it is a good one for sure. Thierry Gonzalez, what if you don't own any business yet, and not sure what to start and are feeling overwhelmed with so many options, where should I start? That's a really good one because I can only imagine there's a lot of people on this call as well that don't have any business yet. Where do you start? What do you do?
I would
Karen.
say start by identifying a pain or a need that you see exists. Start talking to people that you know or might not know and ask them if they have the same pain or need, and see if you have an idea on how to circumnavigate.
Mhm.
But whatever you start is about covering a need, solving a problem. And if you don't know what problem you want to solve, start by observing or identify problems that you have found in your business or personal development up until now. 2, 3 years ago, we had somebody who was an anesthesiologist by profession, and he was sick and tired of going into surgeries and amputating diabetic feet. And at some point, he said, "That's enough. I have to do something about it." 4 years later, he has the smart mat that identifies the ulcer before 5 weeks before it appears. He employs 130 people, and he is the face of anti-amputations for diabetics. So it all started by him observing a real problem. That's your road to customer discovery anyway. So think of things you see that might need solutions.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Wayne Schmidt, what would be the best set of resources to help I am a new founder and could use mentorship on how to be a founder? That's a good one.
We're trying to build one at Founderway.
Founderway.com. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, you could, we have a beta version of ACE. She's your, advisor, an early stage advisor for founders that we've built. She's live on our website. We haven't connected her to the platform, but I often find people at Venture Cafe, for example, you connect, and as someone who mentors others, sometimes you don't have the capacity to mentor as many people as you would like to. And people will come up in the first meeting and say, "Hey, would you mentor me?" And I think it's very important to understand that mentoring someone is a very personal relationship, and being involved in their life. And your business is personal when you're a founder. It's pretty much intermingled. So going in, I think try and start building a relationship with someone. Help them understand what are you trying to achieve. One of the most successful relationships with being a mentor or having someone mentor me has been setting goals with them and achieving the goals. When you are talking about a goal and you never get to achieve that goal, you stop losing momentum, and people stop engaging with that. If you don't have momentum, it's hard to engage with someone who keeps saying they're going to do something and then don't end up doing it,
Right.
or don't provide a follow-up, and then you bump into them at an event and they're like, "Oh my God, I need to set up time in your calendar." And they have your calendar link and they keep booking time in your calendar, and you're like, okay, there has to be a productive way of having that relationship which works for both sides, the mentor and the mentee.
So, and just to quickly ask about like the mentorship piece, right? So how would you say you would go find a mentor, right? Like, I'm sure that there's a lot of people on this call that don't have mentors, and need it. Is there a specific place, an event, a feeling, anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's You can meet a mentor. It's like you could meet, like how
Anywhere.
Sophia said, you could meet them anywhere.
Mhm.
I have met people in Ubers, when they're driving you around, you have a conversation. And I've met someone who, in fact, was an investor and goes around driving Ubers because that's something he finds interesting, gets him out of the house. He has older kids, and this is how he meets people in the city. And I'm in touch with that person, and we talk every quarter, and we'll exchange emails. You have to build a rapport with a person. There are mentor-mentee matching events. It's tougher as you get older to have that very structured mentor-mentee event relationship. But when you're younger and in college, it's easier to kind of maintain that with people that it's a professor or for me, that's how it kind of panned out.
And it should feel natural, right? Like because you are going to
100%.
be part of this person's life and they're going to be part of your life for a very long time. So kind of, to the sense of like making those connections with a co-founder or an investor, it needs to feel natural. All of those people are going to be such a big part of your business in your life that you don't want it to be strenuous. And I think we have time for one more question, and this is going to be for Mike. Matthew Martino wants to know, I find Boston challenging because it is dominated by biotech, green tech, fintech. What advice do you have for someone to network who is not part of the dominant business scene? I know we touched upon this a little bit, but he's so right. It is very tech oriented, which is great, but also at the same time, there's a lot of other businesses out there that are going through, the startup phases as well. How would you suggest them moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've found really useful, and I think this also, I was going to say this in reference to, being an introvert or, having issues going to an event, is like, cold email outreach by like through research is like really helpful. And like, I often just like start looking at like, companies that I'm interested in talking to and just finding someone at one of those companies. And that could be like a mentor that I'm interested in, developing a relationship with. It could be, I know an event's coming up and this person's company or they're going to it, and you reach out to them ahead of time and say, hey, I'm going to be here. But I also just think, like know which industries you're targeting. And so it doesn't have to be tech or anything. It can be, whatever. And just writing a really thoughtful email that shows like you put research into what they do, what their product is, whatever. And developing a conversation that way can then lead into, an in-person connection at an event, coffee or whatever. But you don't have to rely on, just like big events exclusively. You can develop a lot of your network by just, developing connections through research and cold emailing, or warm emailing, I guess. I hate, cold just sounds terrible.
Do you ever find going to these co-working spaces or incubators? Did you ever do that? Like, what was your kind of first steps?
I mean, not as much like co-working spaces, but like often just like random cafes and like, again, like being open to conversation. I think you have to just go into things with an open mind and being open to conversations, and like an openness and curiosity, just generally speaking, like, serves you well.
Yeah. Awesome. So in terms of incubators, and this is for the whole panel, and spaces and things like that. And Kieran, I know that you didn't leave your house for 2 years, but with that said, do you think that that's a really good also first step for startups to get themselves in front of other people in those types of spaces?
Yes, 100%. I think there's two things that happen. One, you meet your tribe, people who are going through the same problems you're going through. We are part of Ethos, which is a AI hub for founders in Boston, in Cambridge. They're inside the CIC. I can drop the link to the Athos website here. You can check it out if you're an AI company and interested to find your tribe there. So number one, you'll find founders that are going through the same challenges that you are or have been through those challenges. Number two, the mentor or the advisor part, that's automatically available because that's how most accelerators or co-working spaces have access to resources. So not only do you end up getting like credits for Google Cloud, like Microsoft Azure, those kind of resources, but then also access to their network of people. And I think it's one of the best ways to grow super fast is get connected to a community that where you can go every day and belong to and learn from others in different capacities.
Yeah. Keep on bringing up the connection piece, right? It's like you're going to make those connections. You're going to have those conversations. You're going to learn from other people. And it's also, remember, sometimes it's okay to like talk to other people that are not in your specific industry, right? So if somebody is in a different industry and you're having a conversation, hearing answers to questions that you might have that you don't typically hear is really good too. So always having an outsider's, thought or answer is also a really good thing. Yeah. Awesome. Well, you guys, this was great. I loved having this conversation and hearing from multiple different industries and with different people. It was super helpful. I honestly, I'm super proud to be moderating this and very happy to be doing so. And yeah, Stephanie, take it away.